Now that we've had a chance to get the feel of how you work with project assets, let's put those drawing tools to use. For this chapter, we're going to learn how to set up a scene for a typical Flash project that contains lots of different types of media for its artwork. We'll learn more about the drawing and editing tools, and we'll set up a file structure that will make things easier when we get to animating in the next chapter. Now once again, I'm starting with a brand new file, which you can either make right here from the welcome screen, or go up to the File, New selection. We'll choose ActionScript 3. And the first thing I'm going to do is set up some of the basic document properties. You'll notice once again we're set up for the Flash 10 player and the ActionScript 3 scripting language. What that basically means is we're targeting our Flash application towards users who already have the Flash Player 10 plugin. By clicking on the Edit button, we can change those settings right up here in the Flash tab of our Publish settings. Notice that we can target our Flash movie for any of the previous players that we want to, in addition to a mobile environment or even the iPhone. But we'll stick with Flash Player 10 for now, and I'll just hit Cancel. It's a good idea to set those publish settings up first, as well as any changes you want to make to the size or the stage. Once again, I'm going to change the stage size down to a little bit smaller height so it fits our recording screen. Let's set the height to 300 pixels, and I'll center up my stage. To get things rolling, I'd like to set up my drawing tools for a little sketching. We're going to be sketching a little landscape with a valley and some mountains in the background. Now when I'm sketching, I like to turn off the snap to object setting. That makes sure that my cursor is not going to snap out to some wild point when I'm not expecting it to. I'll start off with my pencil drawing tool, and let's just make sure we set up some settings that are going to work okay for us. Black seems alright for the color. And for the pencil mode, I'm going to choose Smooth. And for starters, I'll just draw in a couple of little hills in the foreground. As always, the mouse is not a great drawing tool. In fact, if you have a USB tablet, you can hook it right up to your computer and Flash will start using it right away, and that might make your drawing a little easier. It's not too bad because from what we learned in our last chapter, we can just go back to our selection tool, maybe do a little smoothing on these two lines. I'll select the first one. Click smooth maybe 3 times, and we can always come back in and reshape our lines to give us that nice hill shape that we're looking for. I'll do the same thing for the second line. As always, you can choose the tools you're comfortable with, and if you like the pen tool a little bit more for control, you can use it. I'll use it for drawing a little river between the two hills. I'll select my pen tool, click to make my starting point and drag out just a little bit. And then with each successive click and drag, I can reshape a little line for the edge of a river. All my lines so far are going off the edge of the stage, and that's okay because they'll be clipped in our final project. We can always switch back to our selection tool and make any adjustments we need. I'll double click and I can pull the river line up just a little bit. And I'll select this first hill, maybe switch over to my transform tool to squish it down just a little bit, and then move it to adjust its position. Notice when I click back on my pencil tool that object drawing has been turned off, so that means we're in merge drawing mode. And in that mode, anytime we have overlapping lines like this, they should be clipped off at the ends. Let's switch back to our selection tool, and what I'll do is select the overlapping piece of that line and just hit delete. You can see that my line is cleanly clipped off right at the intersection between the hill and the river. Next, let's copy the river line so that we can make a bank on the opposite side. If I double click, it's going to select all the connected sections. So let me click away from that, and I'll just shift click and gather up the pieces that we need to form this side of the river. Now we could use copy and paste, that would be fine. I'm going to go ahead and use one of my favorite shortcuts in the program, and that is an Option or Alt drag. On a Mac, hold down the Option key, and of course on the PC, hold down the Alt key, and just simply click on your selected object and drag it over, and you'll create a copy. And of course, if I click in some empty space and deselect that line, we can go back in with our selection tool and reshape those lines to match what we would like to see in our riverbank. I'll widen the river out at this end and grab this endpoint and narrow it here. Now you notice once again I'm just crossing over that line, and I know my curves are going to be split right at that point, so I can get rid of that extra piece. Just select it and hit delete, and make any final adjustments that we want to our river. I'll just turn snapping back on here for a second and grab the end of this hill, and you'll notice I can snap it right to the line on the edge of that riverbank to make sure that they're joined. Now what I really wanted here was some green hills and a blue river, and that means I'm going to need some fill shapes. So let's take our straight line tool and we'll drag around the outside and create kind of a box that we'll use to clip everything off. Now each one of my areas is actually an enclosed area, and we can switch over to our paint bucket tool and just select a good color and drop in our fills. I'll select kind of a bright green for the hills, and we'll select a nice blue for the river. Now you can see how merge drawing actually helped out a little bit in clipping off my lines and also joining everything together. We use several disconnected outlines in this case to create our fills, and we actually don't need the lines anymore. So I'm just going to go up to my selection tool here, and remember, if we double click, it will select all of the connected lines, which is, I think, every line in the project. I can just hit delete right now, and I'm left with our fill shapes, and we've gotten rid of the lines that we don't need anymore.